Good evening, everyone. Today we are from Group 2 and we would like to present the influence of monetary and fiscal policy on aggregate demand. My name is Fahri Ariq Muhammad, and today I would be accompanied by my partners in presenting this material.
Hello, my name is Hanif Bintang.
Hello everyone, my name is Naswa.
Hello everyone, my name is Gavrilla.
Starting off with the first material. So, monetary policy influence on aggregate demand. Monetary policy is the setting of money supply by policymaker in the central bank. The theory of liquidity preference. It is the interest rate adjusted to bring money supply and money demand into balance. For money supply, it is the quantity of money available in the economy. The quantity itself is set by government policy and is done through the purchase and sale of government bond in open market operation. For money demand, it is the amount of money that the economy wants to hold. Because money is the economy's medium of exchange, it is by definition the most liquid asset available. The liquidity of money explains the demand of it. If the interest rate is greater than the equilibrium, people will tend to spend their money. If the equilibrium is greater, people will hold on to their money. So what's equilibrium? It is the balancing scale of money supply and demand. If the interest rate is in any other level, people will try to adjust their portfolios of money and non-monetary assets and, as a result, drive the interest rate towards the equilibrium. The downward slope of the aggregate demand curve. It is the effect of an equilibrium within the market towards money supply and demand. The implication of equilibrium could be a higher price level, which rises the money demand. Higher money demand leads to a higher interest rate, and a higher interest rate reduces the quantity of goods and services demanded.
Let's move on to the next slide. So when we see the change in money supply and what it affects on interest rate and on aggregate demand. So first we have two scenario which when Fed rate Fed of bank expands demand is supply, it will reduce interest rates and increase the quantity of goods, causing the aggregate demands curve to move to the right. And in the second scenario, when the Fed cuts demand the supply, the interest rate rise and demand of goods and service required for any given price level will fall. Therefore, pushing the aggregate demand curve to the left. Moving to the next slide.
Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about fiscal policy and how it influences aggregate demand. So, fiscal policy is the setting of the levels of government spending and taxation by government policymakers. So, fiscal policy essentially refers to the government's choices regarding the overall levels of government purchases and taxes. So, fiscal policy affects aggregate demand through changes in government spending and taxation. Those factors will then influence employment and household income, which then impact consumer spending and investment. And when policymakers changes the money supply or the level of taxes, they shift the aggregate demand curve indirectly by influencing the spending decisions of firms or households. By contrast, when the government alters its own purchases of goods and services, it shifts the aggregate demand curve directly. And fiscal policy itself, there are two fiscal policies. The first one is expansionary fiscal policy, usually enacted in response to recessions or employment shocks, increases government spending in areas such as infrastructure, education, and unemployment benefits, while contractionary fiscal policy can be used to reduce government spending and sovereign debt, or to correct out of control growth fueled by rapid inflation and asset bubbles. And there are some macroeconomic effects that cause the size of the shift in aggregate demand to differ from the change in government purchases. The first one is the multiplier effect, which is the additional shifts in aggregate demand that result when expansionary fiscal policy increases income and thereby increases consumer spending. Next.
Another phenomena in which fiscal policy influences aggregate demand is crowding out effect. Crowding out effect is the reduction in aggregate demand resulted from the increase of interest rate by the fiscal policy expansion. Now, the thing is, crowding out does not always happen. It would most likely happen when the economy is close to full employment. The other phenomena is the changes of taxes. The changes in taxes influence the household decision making, which would affect aggregate demand. So, when the household deemed the tax change to be permanent, it would have a huge impact on the aggregate demand. But on the other hand, when it deemed as temporary, it would have smaller impact. That is all from our group. Thank you.